We're live. Let's do it. Hey, everybody. I'm Tiffany Weber. I'm a real estate attorney in Mooresville, North Carolina at Thomas and Weber. Today, I think we've got a kind of a real estate roundup talking about a couple different things with how local banks are responding to the Silicon Valley Bank collapse, what you need to do if you are selling or buying property as an entity. So, should we dive right in?
Yeah, we get a little bit of everything. Today we've got some stuff with what's interesting in the news, what people are asking about, and also the things that people are like, well, what are you doing? And so like getting started into this Silicon Valley Bank thing, like I don't watch the news. You don't really watch the news unless you need to. So like, can you explain to people what you know? You're not a banking expert. You don't know.
There are much smarter people on the internet who have explained how this went down, but the most oversimplified explanation is that Silicon Valley Bank kind of experienced the classic run on the bank. So people started getting afraid due to some actions that were occurring at the bank. So they all went to withdraw their money, and banks don't keep everybody's money in the vault. So when everybody started withdrawing their money, it quickly led to their collapse. I think in as little as 48 hours that happened, from the first signals of distress to when the Fed had to come in and take over. It's 48 hours.
Yeah, and like I talked to our financial guy. I don't know what to call him. Is he a financial advisor?
That's
exactly what the money man. I talked to the money man, and he said the interesting thing about that bank is that they had a ton of startups in there. They had a ton of crypto people in there, and so when crypto, which has not been doing the greatest for the past year or so, those people needed money. And so when they needed money, they went in and they withdrew money. And when they kept withdrawing money, the bank ran out of the money because, like if you don't know, banks lend out money. And so like they don't keep it all. So sometimes it's being lent out that's going to get paid back to them. And if you want to go out and pull your money out, like if everybody pulls their money out, they probably don't have all that money, which is exactly what happened.
Yeah. So one of the key reasons for the distress was that Silicon Valley Bank, unsurprisingly in Silicon Valley, had high number of startups as their customer base. I got a call, I guess the collapse happened on Friday.
Saturday morning.
Sunday.
Or I thought he called you Saturday morning.
Sunday.
It was they met on Saturday.
Yeah. So we have a lot of local banking relationships. That's kind of the thing in real estate is you need the local banking relationships. But also it's kind of normal for real estate closing attorneys in our area to work with the smaller local banks because of responsiveness, the level of customer service that you get that you do not always get with the larger banks. I'm not suggesting that you can't get great customer service at the larger banks. It's just that sometimes real estate needs to move really quickly, and you can get better results moving quickly with the local bank that knows you. And when you pick up the phone and call, they're like, oh yeah, this is Thomas and Weber. We got to get on this. So Cliff Honeycutt at Blue Harbor Bank called me on Sunday to explain that, a lot of the local banks were meeting all weekend because until the news on Monday that all of the depositors at Silicon Valley Bank would be made whole, everyone was very fearful that they needed to pull out anything over $250,000 in the accounts and move the money elsewhere.
Well, what's up with this $250,000 number for people that don't quite get it?
That's the amount that is insured. So your insured deposits, if your bank fails and you have $250,000 and $1 in the bank, then the $250,000 is insured. You will be made whole on that, and the $1, it's anybody's guess whether you will. So that left a lot of uncertainty, and people potentially making moves to go to these all these other banks and start withdrawing their money, which could have led to like national banking failures. But a lot of these local banks are meeting on the weekend to say, all right, one, let's talk about our financial position. How do we help our customers understand that we are financially sound? And then they started calling people. And I got a call from Cliff Honeycutt, and he was explaining that they're very diversified, unlike how Silicon Valley Bank was. A lot of their business was in tech and startups, whereas, these local banks, they're very diversified in their branches of business. And he said we could have, multiple of these sectors of ours fail and still be fine. So he said, any of your clients or customers or anybody that that needs more information on this, have them call us. We love talking about this. It's one of the things that makes us happy about our bank is that we've got.
That's why we like to work with the local bank, because you can call and ask a question right then and get, Cliff's pretty high up there.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking to somebody pretty high up in the chain. Like I've gone over and talked to the CEO of Blue Harbor, the guy that's running the show. And it's not like I'm going and talking to the guy at Wells Fargo. Like, no, I drove over to their office and talked to those guys that are in charge.
Yeah. So, certainly that helps a lot. It goes a long way so that you feel comfortable having your deposits at a certain bank. I feel like a lot of the local banks here are offering that. So if you're in the Lake Norman area and you're with one of the smaller local banks, call them. They'll talk you through their position and answer the questions that you have so that you feel comfortable, or, even if you don't feel comfortable, you have good information to make a decision. But it definitely has made things interesting from closings, because we have had some buyers be affected by this. So their money was tied up in Silicon Valley Bank.
Interesting.
So, for example, there was a closing last week where the buyer's funds were deposited with Silicon Valley Bank. They're supposed to close, I think it was Thursday. The money wasn't going to be available on Thursday. They were going to be made whole. They were going to receive their funds, but not on that date. So then it affects, okay, well, was their rate lock going to expire with their loan? Were they going to be in breach of contract for failing to close on time? So it's kind of a terrible ripple effect.
Yes, a huge snowball effect from, a little delay in closing, which is why we really focus on not delaying closings and getting you done on time.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also people sending their funds to us. They, most closings these days, unfortunately, it's over $250,000. So, they're sending funds and wanting to know, all right, what's the deal with this bank I'm sending it to? Are they strong? Are they going to collapse? Or, so we fielded calls from clients who wanted to know more information about their options for sending their funds. We've also directed them, hey, if you want, we can get you on a call with somebody at Blue Harbor that can talk you through. But, it's just something that we're having to deal with until everybody kind of feels secure and settled here. And in real estate, it's, if you read the Good Funds Settlement Act, we have to have all of the funds in our trust account to be able to disperse. It is really not feasible to have an infinite number of trust accounts that each holding $250,000 that we cobble together for each closing. I feel like that would be a nightmare to deal with. And I don't even know if the statute would allow it. I'd have to go back and read it. But even if it did, I don't think it would be taken kindly to with the trust accounting people at the bar. So it's unfortunate. We're dealing with it and we're moving forward, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. And anyone here, if you stick around to the end, we're going to do a Q&A. Like, we are live. I'm literally switching back and forth right now. So if you have questions, type them in the chat. Tiff will answer them at the end. And
as long as it's not legal advice.
No legal advice, but any questions you've got, she'll answer them to the best of her ability. Like we said at the beginning, she's not a banking expert. She's just got this much information to be able to help put her client's mind at ease. So that's kind of all she really focuses on. But, if she knows something, she'll certainly answer questions. But moving past the gloom and doom into a little more of an exciting topic today, which is kind of real estate investing. People love real estate investing, kind of real estate
when you
investing.
Said exciting, I thought, what are we talking about?
Real estate investing, like, a lot of people are excited about real estate investing. And, we're talking about purchasing a home or purchasing a property with an entity, which is probably because you're a real estate investor or, through one of your other companies, mistakes people make and the documents that they need. So I know nothing about this other than we have two entities that we own two properties with. That's about the extent of my knowledge. Why? I don't know. Why didn't we put them in the same one? I don't know. That's why you're here to tell us.
So this topic was highly requested by our closing paralegals.
Oh, I was like, we have listeners that are requesting. Thank you, people. Thank you so much. No, just our paralegals.
Highly, highly requested. In fact, last week, 2 paralegals came into my office and said, I know your next video. So that's why we're talking about this. And it is primarily going to focus on if you are buying or selling out of an entity, what documents do you need? And specifically, let's start with LLCs, limited liability companies. And remember, I'm a North Carolina attorney, so I'm talking about North Carolina and buying and selling in North Carolina. So if you're saying, well, that's not how we do it in Kentucky, yes, you're right. It's not. It's how we do it in North Carolina. So make sure that anything you listen to here, you're keeping in mind that it's focused on that. But in North Carolina, when you file an LLC, you get something called the Articles of Organization. And that's kind of your proof that you filed the entity with the Secretary of State. And then our North Carolina Secretary of State website shows whether you're active, whether you've been dissolved, are you up to date on your annual reports, etc. So a lot of times our closing paralegals will be asking buyers and sellers, hey, we need your organizational documents. We need your articles. We need your operating agreement. We need your resolution for the sale, etc. And they just keep getting the same one document over and over again.
Which is probably just their
the
LLC.
Articles of Organization.
Like we
is
tried
this what
to
you need?
Form an LLC.
That is one of the things we need. And that's also the thing that if in North Carolina, we can easily get on our, if we have to go looking for it, we can get it on our own. But no, it is not all we need. We also need, if you're an LLC, your operating agreement, which is it lays out who has the authority to sign on behalf of the company. The articles don't do that. The articles, you don't even have to list all the members on the Articles of Organization. So like for example, in one of our LLCs, I'm pretty sure we were both listed as members, but I didn't have to do that. I could have just listed myself as the organizer, signed it.
Should have.
And nobody would know that
Me either.
Nobody would know.
It would have been great.
So when it comes time for us to buy or sell in those entities, then there's no way to know from the articles who are the members, who has the authority to sign. Does the manager have only limited authority that has to be voted on by the members? Is it more than one manager? What's essentially the lay of the land of what are you allowed to do? It would be like if we were selling our house right now, and I showed up to the closing and said, "Oh, I'm allowed to sign for Ryan." And they were like, "Well, where's the power of attorney?" "Oh, I don't need. I'm his wife. Yeah, I can sign."
That's just me. I'm good. I don't think it works like that. There needs to be something legally binding that says
the articles are like
indeed
the marriage certificate, like just proof that you're married. It doesn't mean that you can sign. So the power of attorney is what proves that. So that's one way that I like to think of it. Is it's essentially what proves who owns the company, and then who's allowed to bind the company. So if you don't have the operating agreement, you're like, well, I never needed it before, probably because you were not borrowing money, buying or selling property. So without any way to know, who you are and what you're allowed to do, unfortunately, the closing attorney can't just rely on your word, especially even more so if you're not even on the articles. So that makes it even more confusing. So you have to have the operating agreement, and then whenever you're selling, there's going to be a resolution saying, yes, we, the members, have agreed that we're going to sell the property. And then the manager, we affirm everything that the manager has done with respect to selling the property so far. So we affirm the contract, we affirm, any of the deed, whatever has been signed. We agree to this action. Yes, we're moving forward.
So we had someone in the comments here say that they bought a condo and formed an LLC just before to limit their liability on many levels. So I guess that's a good kind of segue into why would you form an LLC versus just trying to purchase something in your name?
Well, it goes back to the name of the entities, or the name of the type of entity, limited liability company. So you're able to use this as a sort of liability shield. It's kind of like you put your shield up and the company acts for you. So that means you can't use the company as like your personal piggy bank, things like that, because that can take your shield away. There's a lot of things that you could do to pierce the corporate veil. But if you are employing your LLC correctly, then it can limit your liability and prevent, say you get a judgment against you, it could prevent someone coming after your individual assets. So, that they would kind of be limited to recovery of the assets of the LLC. So that kind of leads into like the discussion of, well, do you put one property per LLC? Do you put all of your properties in one LLC? That's a little bit outside of the scope of the discussion today because there's pros and cons, and you need to loop in your accountant and insurance professional for all of that. But yeah, so it's really just a way to, especially if you're going to have tenants, you're not going to be living there as your primary residence, to limit your liability in case you are sued or something bad happens on the property.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's my knowledge of it. Like once again, like I'm not a lawyer. I just am here
You just
hanging
play
out.
one on TV.
Yeah, I play one on TV. But any way you can prevent and protect yourself from your personal property. So because I have this business does not mean that if my business goes under, that also means my personal property should also go under. Kind of is the
That's
way.
kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's the dumb person's way of explaining it. So you're welcome to the rest of the world.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think that sounded dumb. I mean, of course, to make
it's so dumb people can understand it, like me.
To make your statement true, of course, people have to properly use their LLCs. You can undo all that by personal guaranteeing things, because then you can obligate yourself individually to debts of the company. But if you're using your LLC properly and you don't really have a lot of guarantees hanging out there, then it's a really good way to having your individual assets at risk. Now, one other thing, other documents you might need if you are specifically selling or buying in a commercial context. We don't often need these in residential in North Carolina because it's pretty much always North Carolina entities that we're dealing with in our office. So we're able to go view these documents and get satisfied that the company is in good standing. But if you are, an out of state company, then the closing attorney is going to need to know, is this company authorized to do business in North Carolina? And if you are transacting really buying and selling real estate is doing business in North Carolina. So, do you have the certificate of authority or good standing to prove that, one, you're authorized to do business in North Carolina, but then in your state, are you in good standing in the state that you formed in? So those are some other things that might come up in a closing. Not in every closing, but sometimes.
So you guys need what document did you say there first?
Articles.
And then you also need the operating agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And then
this is for LLCs. So other entities call them different things. So a corporation, it would be your shareholder agreement.
And is there any other specific paperwork that's needed to purchase property that's helpful, at least from?
Nothing sticks out. If you've got those things, if you show up ready with your articles and your operating agreement, at least to start, the resolution can be drafted during the closing process. So if you've already done it and you have a corporate attorney that's done that for you, excellent. Send it to us. Otherwise, it'll be done as part of the closing. But articles, operating agreement, we're off to the races.
And if they're
complete signed operating agreement.
And when they don't get those to you, like, what are some of the things that happen? Why is that such an issue? And what does it do? If you don't have those things
it will
in order?
delay closing. And it would be as if an individual came in and said, if someone walked in the office and said, I'm Ryan Weber, and we didn't verify that that person was Ryan Weber, I mean, that could be a fraudulent conveyance. We have to know that you are who you say you are, and you have the authority to do what you say you can do. So this is another, it's a layer of identity verification for an entity.
Is there any little mistakes you see from real estate investors with just like legal documents, paperwork, just understanding the laws? Because real estate investing, it's an investment, so you're trying to give a little sidewinding on some things sometimes. Is there any specific things that you can think
I think it would be not looking at the details of the all right, I went on the Secretary of State, I paid my $200, I formed my LLC, I didn't spend the money to get the operating agreement, I didn't wanna spend the money to do anything else to make it more formal. So then they rush in and start doing business, and then they get to closing on their first, flip or whatever it may be, and, now they're being asked for all this stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I didn't think I needed that." So I think you get it done up front because once you're in the middle of actually doing the investing, you're gonna get a lot busier. Typically the slowest time for investors is the day they start their company. So, just get it done up front and then also not keeping up with, like, annual reports and stuff. So that can get you dissolved when you don't know it. That happens to a lot of people.
And, I mean, this is a minor piece of advice, and I'm just looking out for our CPA friends. Get a bank account for that LLC as well, a separate bank account, so you're not commingling funds.
That goes to the liability shield. So,
Yeah.
I think back to litigation days whenever I'd be making the argument to pierce the corporate veil, that somebody was using it as their personal piggy bank or didn't even have a separate account, like I don't wanna get too into the details.
Well, what happens if you were doing that? If you were using it as your own personal account, that kind of removes the liability of the
That's
LLC.
one of those factors that goes to show, okay, you were operating one and the same.
Right.
So
then they can go after your
remove
personal
the
property.
liability shield
Yeah.
and
So that's why you wanna have that separate account and, actually use it correctly and operate it as a true business. I'm saying that because I've been told that by, many people smarter than me, and it's always one thing that stuck around in my head of like, "Hey, if you don't do this, really bad things can happen, so just follow these rules and you'll be in way better shape if anything were to come up."
I mean, of course, if you're out there listening to this, talk to your accountant about it. They can talk you through all the reasons and what to do and et cetera. But, I'm thinking about past cases that I was involved
Yeah,
in.
the 5 or 6 accountants I've talked to all said the same thing, so I feel like that's pretty good advice.
Yeah.
Is there any other things that you should be, bringing for documents with LLCs or buying properties with, with business entities?
Well, you still have to bring your photo ID.
Yeah,
But I think that's obvious.
Gotcha. So, I think that is probably the nuts and bolts of mistakes people make, and it's really on the front end with paperwork.
Yeah, the main thing is your articles of organization. It's the marriage certificate. It's just the proof that you got married, or, it doesn't give you the right to do things, um, unilaterally, or it's not the proof of it. So, if you didn't get your operating agreement and you're a single member LLC and you're like, "Well, I'm the only one." Well, we don't know that. We can't see that. The articles don't tell us that. What does? The operating agreement does that. So that's why you're being asked for it and know the articles of organization are not sufficient for that purpose.
Yeah. Well, great. I think that's, where we would wrap up our podcast. We've got some, folks here still listening. We've got a question in here for, Tiff, which, I try and get you to answer this all the time because you're on the back end of real estate. So, everyone always wants to talk to you about the market the market, and you don't know the market as well as other people. Like mortgage lenders know the market pretty well. Realtors obviously know the market pretty well.
I
You
see
know
the
it.
trends after.
Yeah.
I see everything 14 to 30 days after. So I might be hearing rumblings about what's going on, but I don't see that materialize until we get to the closing table. So the closings we're doing right now are rates that were locked in 30, 60 days, 30, 45, 60 days ago. The seller credits or not that we're seeing now are things that were happening in the market 30, 45 days ago. But from one thing that I do see on the front end is number of new files coming in.
Right.
The market is definitely heating up
Yes.
if we were to go by that. Now until those close.
It's still not 2020 numbers. Those are 2021 numbers.
Wacky. That was wacky. Well, that was, interest rates, all sorts of things affected that. But certainly seeing more competition from our own home sale. We saw lots and lots of showings. We went under contract in 2 days.
Yeah, we had 18 showings in 2 days. So, like, if that tells you anything, and it was mean, it wasn't a cheap house. It's not like it was a $200,000 house that you probably will get 18 showings in 2 days because you can't find that.
Yeah, we know someone who just went under contract in less than 24 hours with, like, 14 showings. So it's certainly, for the right properties that are priced in the right ranges, it's still a lot of competition. So we are seeing an increase in new files coming in. We're seeing that the realtors that are on top of their game are probably about as busy as they've been in the past couple of years, and they're kinda running around crazy, and making a lot of deals happen. Now, I can't tell you what rates they're locking in yet because we haven't seen the title requests, those things come.
Mhm.
So I would rely on the lenders for the rates
Mhm.
and, they're what they're seeing on home prices, I see it later.
Right.
So, I that's not intended to be a cop out, it's just that I'm not
You're
the
you're
leader.
delayed, like, you can't say, like, "Is the market good?" Well, it is now, which I guess
It is
maybe a month
heating
ago
up.
it was.
Yeah, it's heating up, but until I see what are these people getting seller credits or not? Are they paying over asking? I don't know that yet.
Mhm. What about the market for land? Do you see the difference in land versus housing, or have seen it maybe over the past 6 months? Like, is there more land transactions or house
Mm,
transactions, or is it just kinda on pace for
it stayed about the same from our perspective. Well, I say that, but for, individuals buying land, I'd say, lakefront lots are always super hot
Mhm,
because there's not a lot of them. Um, any opportunities that people with large lakefront lots have to subdivide because they don't want the entire lot and then make some cash, they're trying to do that. And then, of course, development. So we are seeing a lot of land transactions for the purposes of developing for single-family residential, not just to sell, but also to rent. So these big companies are building neighborhoods intended entirely to rent them, so they're not going to put them on the market to sell.
yeah, I know a couple, local builders that have done that. Maybe they bought a parcel of land that they're gonna put 15 or 20 townhomes or, residential homes on, and they're owning the property and owning the, real estate, building them, but solely for the purpose of rent.
Yeah, so we're seeing quite a bit of that.
I'm interested in seeing what happens to those, like, after X number of years, like, are they gonna just sell them? Are they gonna
No.
renovate them and do it again? Like, I don't know if we've had any markets that have done that yet, or, like, it's too
Well,
new right now.
it's too new to us. I'm sure in other major markets this has happened and,
True.
it's probably been 8, 10 years and they've done something or perhaps they've had the turnover of, "All right, let's renovate and get a whole new batch in."
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm very interested to know how it's all
Mm.
gonna play out long term, 'cause these are brand new pieces
Yeah,
of,
we just drove
it's
by
like
one the other day that
new
I didn't know
townhomes,
about it.
new,
Yeah.
single family that are detached. So I don't know what's gonna happen, but it's certainly attractive for those that are renting to be able to rent a single family home, but once they're sick of the apartment living, that's
Yeah.
where they go.
Yeah. Well, I don't see any other questions. If anyone has any other questions, type in the chat. Otherwise, I believe that's the episode today. You got any, hot topics off the top of your head?
No, but do you have any interesting questions like,
Nobody gave me an interesting question. I don't have any interesting
no,
questions.
your last week
Oh, did I ask you something
you asked me
interesting?
something weird,
Well,
like, would you rather fight, 100, uh,
well, let's hear it.
or what
Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck?
I think you've asked me this once before,
Mhm.
and I think I'm going with the duck-sized horse. Well, ducks are pretty big, though. I think I'm sticking with the duck-sized horses.
Duck-sized horses, 100 of them.
Yeah, I don't feel great about this decision.
I also would pick that, and it reminds me of the viral video that one, uh, fitness guy, Juju Mufu, whatever his name is, and he had
Mhm.
the video of him, like, running around and kicking the flamingos. He
Oh,
was
I
like,
haven't seen
and just, like, tore down
not real?
flamingos. Huh?
Not real?
No, fake flamingos. And he was just like running around kicking like fake flamingos.
Like, yeah, he'd definitely be canceled for kicking flamingos.
And that's what my brain goes to, like, oh, I'd just be running around like kicking these little horses.
Yeah. And also like climbing wise, I feel like I'd have a better chance of climbing away from.
I'm not messing with like duck-sized ducks are mean. A horse-sized duck? They're taking you down.
Yeah, you get quacked out.
Yeah. I think that's it, Tiff.
Yep.
You let these people know where they can hear from you again, and I'll make you look good.
Okay, so thomasandweber.com, Law with Tiff, Law at the Lake on Instagram.
Podcast.
Oh yeah, Podcast from Counter Real Estate Show.
Mhm.
And then on YouTube, The Real Estate Lawyer.
That's it. We're speaking. Oh, tell them about your speaking thing. We're both speaking.
Super excited about
details.
this.
I'm just showing up.
So April, I'm pretty sure I think I had to look it up because I was worried to spell it wrong. With Real Broker has invited us to speak at an event on Wednesday at Bears from 10 to 4. I don't know if you can still get tickets.
Yeah, so Wednesday, March 23rd. I bet if you showed up and said, I want to. 22nd? What's the 22nd? Wednesday, March 22nd. Cabarrus Brewing, 10 a.m. I think it's.
4, yeah. So there's several panels. It's how to recession-proof your business is the focus of it. So lots of speakers about,
Thanks, Kyle.
creating your story brand, which Ryan loves. There's a story brand certified speaker that's going to be there. I think he's the keynote. And then we're each on separate panels. Too much Weber for one panel. They can put us together.
We should have been the panel.
Panel.
People would have just, it's like during lunchtime, so everyone can just get up and leave.
Yeah.
Like we just do our own panel.
Sorry, I'm super hungry.
The time.
So we'll each be speaking about, are you talking about social media and I'm talking about YouTube?
I don't know. I just said yes. And I mean, I do marketing, so I can probably talk about that.
Yeah. I'm excited. I think it's going to be fun. Honored to have been asked. And I think we're just going to have a good day talking about things that you can do. Whenever there's economic uncertainty, people get nervous. So what do you do as a business owner, as an agent, whatever you're involved in, to set yourself apart and stand out so that you can, kind of ride through the tough economic times.
Recession-proof your business.
Yeah.
That's the title of it.
Yep.
Cool. Well, Tiff, as always, it was my pleasure.
My pleasure too.
We'll see you guys next time.
All right. Bye, guys.